At the Sports History Network, we're proud to introduce you to a new sponsor for our podcasts. It's Home Field Apparel, your premium collegiate apparel brand right out of Indianapolis. They've got incredibly comfortable t-shirts, plus they're officially licensed with vintage college designs. They have over 150 plus colleges available now and always adding more. Homefield digs through the archives and history of your school to find unique logos, mascots, and moments to make thoughtful designs for your school. When you shop today, new customers can get a 15% discount off their first purchase using the promo code SPORTSHISTORY at checkout. You can learn more at homefieldapparel.com.
Long before the franchise of the Cleveland Browns in the NFL, there was an NFL franchise called the Cleveland Bulldogs. They were pretty good. They lasted a short time, but they have a fascinating story in football history, as well as a title that we're going to talk about here in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with PigskinDispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And we have some great football history we're going to talk about today. We're going back into some more early pro football teams, an early NFL team, as a matter of fact. And it goes in line with our series we've been doing on the Canton Bulldogs. Before we get into that, though, let's make sure that you know how to reach us on Twitter. We are at Pigskin Dispatch. And on Facebook, we have the Pigskin Dispatch channel. And also you can find us at Pigskin Dispatch, two separate words on Facebook. Make sure you find us on LinkedIn at Darren Hayes. Hit me up on DMs on any of those. We'll write back to you. Or you can email us at pigskindispatch@gmail.com. Give us your comments, your criticisms, your likes and dislikes. We'll help make sure we get in contact back with you, and always taking some great suggestions to improve our site and our podcast. Now let's get into your story. The Canton Bulldogs were a dynasty in the early NFL. And as we have learned from our Canton Bulldogs coverage, we have 5 parts out so far on Canton Bulldogs history. You can find a link to that on Pigskin Dispatch for this Cleveland Bulldogs episode. The Canton 11 were the top team in the NFL for the seasons of 1922 and 1923. They had an unbeaten streak, marred only by a few ties extending all the way back to 1921. With this in mind, we look back in history at why in the world was there not a Canton Bulldogs team listed for the 1924 NFL season? You know, they just won 2 straight championships and then they disappeared. The champs were no more? Well, not exactly. It was more of a similar case to the 1945 Cleveland Rams, when the Rams won the title and then moved to Los Angeles. However, Canton's story has a little bit of a different twist than that of the Rams. Apparently, the owner of the rival Cleveland Indians pro football team, a Cleveland area jeweler named Sam Deutsch, entered into an agreement on August 4th, 1924 to buy the Canton Bulldogs franchise, players, equipment, the whole kit and caboodle. On August 3rd, 1924, Deutsch paid $2,500 to the Canton Bulldogs, a team that had lost $13,000 in 1923, quite a sum of money back then. The sale was a win for both teams, as Canton's owners had great teams with good attendance at the games, but were struggling to turn a profit. Cleveland's Indians franchise, on the other hand, had great cash flow, but lacked the fire and star power to pack the stadium. Well, the Cleveland Indians football team was formed by Deutsch on July 8th of 1923, the year prior, when the NFL approved the franchise. For the 1923 season, the Indians had won just 3 games and finished 5th in the league, out of 20 teams with a 3-1-3 record. Not bad for a first-year team, but for an aggressive owner like Deutsch, it simply was not good enough. So before that 1924 season started, Deutsch, with his new acquisition of Canton, named his coach as Canton's former coach, Guy Chamberlain, the stud star player from the University of Nebraska, who through his strategy and coaching, he was the game changer that led the Bulldogs to their 1922 and 1923 NFL championships in Canton. If you go back in our Canton logs, you see that in 1919, the year before the APFA NFL was formed, Guy Chamberlain's on the team. They're the best team in Ohio. He leaves and goes to Decatur. They're not so good in 1920, not so good in 1921, comes back in 22, and they win those championships. But Deutsch demanded that some of the core players from his former Indians team still would be in the lineup, especially quarterback Hogue Workman, an All-American from nearby Ohio State. Quite a popular player there coming from Ohio State and the Buckeyes and playing in Cleveland. Chamberlain obliged his new boss and carefully managed to merge the two former rival teams into a well-oiled unit. The squad would play their home games at Dunn Field, also known as League Park by today's standards. Now, the Cleveland Bulldogs were a powerhouse, as the combined rosters of the Indians and Bulldogs were what in essence was an all-star team of the two clubs. Deutsch, in a brilliant marketing scheme, even merged the names of the clubs as he promoted them as the Cleveland Bulldogs. That didn't alienate anybody. The Cleveland name kept the Cleveland fans coming. The Bulldog name might draw some of the folks from Canton up to watch the Bulldogs and their former players play up in Cleveland at Dunn Field. The season started rough, though, with heavy rain proved to have their first scheduled opponent, the Columbus Panhandles, decide not to play because of the weather was so poor, despite the desires of the Bulldogs to play the game. It never did get played. The team continued, and the Canton Bulldogs' unbeaten streak by dispatching the Chicago Bears in their opening by the score of 16-14, and then tying the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets 3-3 in the same weekend. Hogue Workman suffered a mild ankle injury that slowed him down a tad in that Frankfurt game, but he fought through it. And then they rattled off a string of victories over the likes of the Akron Pros twice, Rochester Jeffersons, and the Dayton Triangles. Well, that first Akron game was won 29-14 with a hobbled Workman tossing touchdown passes to Wolcott Roberts and Dave Noble in the second quarter as the Bulldogs romped. The game had a bit of a controversy, though, as Cleveland players had a beef with the pro player named Harry Newman. Newman, who had been released by the Bulldogs just a week earlier, was alleged to be stealing Cleveland's signals throughout the contest. Well, imagine that. The Dogs had a bye scheduled that next week, and this allowed Workman and some of the others that were injured to mend their wounds. On the 19th of October, the Bulldogs trounced the visiting Detroit Tigers 46-6 in an exhibition game. The Tigers were not an NFL franchise, thus it was deemed to be exhibition. In a contest, fullback Ben Jones scored 4 touchdowns. Player coach Chamberlain even got in the action as he hauled in a Roberts pass for a 30-yard touchdown to aid his team in scoring as well. The following games were a 59-0 dismantling of Rochester, then a 35-0 blanking of the Dayton Triangles 11. Next up was a 20-7 victory for the Bulldogs for Game 2 with the Akron Pros. The Bulldogs now sat with a 6-0-1 record on the year. It was on November 16th, though, riding a 31-game unbeaten streak dating back to the Canton Bulldogs back in 1921, that they were finally defeated on the gridiron. It was the second meeting with the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets that ended the streak, as the Jackets knocked off the Dogs 12-7 in Cleveland. Now, Elliott ran for 4 scores in the next game played on Thanksgiving Day against the Milwaukee Badgers, romping with a 53-10 victory at home in Cleveland. One game remained on the 1924 schedule, and that was one against the tough Bisons team in Buffalo. Victory in that game would surely guarantee the Bulldogs a championship. However, plans changed when Buffalo received a late fall blizzard, which canceled the game. Imagine that, a blizzard in Buffalo. The version of the 1924 Bulldogs ended the season with a 7-1-1 APFA, with an NFL record. The NFL season had officially concluded, although the Bulldogs still planned to play some postseason exhibition games in December to earn some extra cash. One game was with a very good team, one they played at the beginning of the year, the Chicago Bears, along with a trip to Workman's hometown, Huntington, West Virginia, to play a pro franchise there as well. Well, even though the NFL title was decided because of the league's deadline being met, the Bears wanted to make a statement anyway. On December 7th, the Bears manhandled the Bulldogs 23-0 before a crowd estimated at 18,000. That definitely brought some payroll in for both teams. All appearances were that the Bulldogs would have the NFL title, but not so fast, said the always trying to find an angle for his team to be champs, George Halas. He'd done it before in other years. Halas claimed that his Chicago Bears were champions, claiming that the Bulldogs had agreed to make the second meeting in the title decider. To sell the thought even further, Halas had a photograph, which we have on Pigskin Dispatch, of the team taking with a banner that read World Champions 1924 with the Chicago Bears Football Club scoreboard in the background. That's a pretty bold move there. So you take a look at that picture, you'll see what I'm talking about. A league ruling by Commissioner Joe Carr declared Cleveland as the official champions due to the title being decided by league play in the scheduled time frame, which I believe that season ended December 1st. That roster, in addition to the players mentioned earlier, included stars like Hunk Anderson, Link Lyman, Dick Wolf, Doc Elliott, and Cap Edwards, amongst others. Deutsch must have had his fill with owning a football team because on May 20, 1925, he sold the Cleveland team to a wholesale meat company owner named Herb Brandt. The new Cleveland team merged players who re-signed with reinforcements from the college ranks, but a few of the Bulldogs returned back to Canton, wanting to play as an independent team. The NFL records officially list 2 Bulldogs franchises that season, the Cleveland version going 5-8-1 and the Canton one going 4-4. And we'll talk more about that Canton squad next time, but 1925 marked the end of the line for the Cleveland Bulldogs when they finished with 5-8-1, but they did win that championship in 1924. So just some great football history. Hope you enjoyed listening to this great story as we go through some of these early pro football teams, and love to have you come and listen to some more of them. We have almost all of the early NFL teams covered now by podcast, some with expert guests and authors that have wrote quite a bit on there and are very knowledgeable on these teams. So make sure you check those out. We're going to have a great book coming out for you real soon with the original 14 APFA teams, kind of a different, I'm going to call it sort of an ultra ebook filled with podcasts and great writing from some of ourselves here at Pigskin Dispatch and some of our friends Sports History Network, as well as some other experts out there. So hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you'll tune in again next time for the Pigskin Dispatch podcast. Till then, have a great Gridiron Day. Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
It was just another ordinary day in the offices of the Pittsburgh Guardian newspaper circa 1924. But for Marla Delft, assistant editor, everything was about to change. For she was about to discover the awesome attractiveness of Row 1 brand retro sports paraphernalia items thanks to Orville Mulligan, sports writer.
And there it is.
Wow, Orville, that's really the bee's knees.
Isn't it just? A poster-sized replica of the actual 1909 World Series program cover.
I can see that. But where did you get it? And where'd you get it framed?
I ordered it from the Row 1 website, where over 6,000 items of sports memorabilia from the 1880s to the 1990s are available for reproduction, in multiple sizes and in several different materials, with over a dozen styles of frame to choose from for prints like this.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Delft would love to put up more of these in the office. But I'm equally as sure they're beyond this newspaper's budget.
Not at all, my dear Marla. See for yourself. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com/row1.
sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. Oh my, these are good prices. Oh, and look at this stuff. Oklahoma-Nebraska football, college basketball art, Michael Jordan items.
And so it
retro
was that
sports
Marla Delft
advertisement
discovered the
placards.
splendiferous magic of Row 1 sports memorabilia, arts, and prints. You can too by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. That's ROW1 today for access to the full Row 1 catalog of gallery prints and gifts like t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, telephone cases, coffee mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Act today for 15% discount off all prints with coupon code SHN15 and 20% off all other items with coupon code SHN20 at checkout. And keep your dial locked to the Sports History Network for the exciting chronicles of the 1920 sports world in Orville Mulligan, Sports Writer. Coming soon.